The topic is multiple access techniques for 5G technology or 5G communications, right? So, before this, I will just briefly introduce how the technology advanced and what is the need of MIMO, right? So that I will go into the discussions very briefly, and that is because MIMO systems are the backbone of 5G technology, right? So we are expecting that even an advanced version of MIMO, that is massive MIMO, right? So that is going to be implemented in 5G technology, right? So already MIMO is in market, right? When you talk about 4G, right? So it is already your mobile phones, they are supporting two antennas per device, and at the base station it is supporting eight, up to eight antennas, right? So MIMO is already in market, and 5G, right, that will also be based upon the MIMO technology, right? So that is be it any generation, right? So apart from first generation, which was analog in nature, the second generation onwards, right? So we have this digital modulation, right? And digital modulation, it can be the symbols, they can be represented in the form of constellation diagram, right? So which is one of the constellation diagram for 8 PSK system, right? So it is shown over here, right? So this constellation diagram is nothing but it comes from the vector representation of the symbol, right? So the symbol, right, which is given by this Si of t, right? So where this I going from 0 to m minus 1, that is especially for MPSK representation, right? So for different other modulation schemes, this will be some different representation, right? So over here, if we talk about this representation of SIT, right? So we can expand this term, right? So it is this particular term, and so it is cos A plus B form, right? So we can expand this cos A plus B, right? So we will get it as cos A cos B minus sin A sin B, right? So in the same manner, we can represent it as this, and this being constant terms, right? So that constant term, by that I mean it is independent of the time variable, right? So that is, we have these two terms which are independent of the time variable. Okay, so we can actually represent this particular symbol, right? So in the form of time independent part, right? So this is time independent part as well as the time dependent part, right? So which is, so that means this particular representation of MPSK modulation, it can be considered as based on two carriers, right? So one of the carrier is cosine and other carrier is sine. Okay, and we know that cos and sine, right, they are orthogonal to each other. Okay, and this orthogonality, right, so it is in whenever we consider at least half time period, right? So if it is cos 2 pi fct, right, so whatever is the time period of this particular function, right? So cos function and sine function, they will be orthogonal, and that means they will not mix up, right? So orthogonal signals, they do not interfere each other, right? And that is how this constellation diagram is two dimensional, right? So two dimensional means it has two orthogonal carriers. Okay, so based on that, we can represent this constellation diagram, right? And then see, we already know that all of the systems, right? So whenever that signal is transmitted and received, right, so received signal is not free of noise, right? So noise is always there. Okay, so whenever noise is present, right, so this constellation diagram no longer remains in its pure form, right? Depending on the amount of noise right? So for example, if we consider this particular constellation point, okay, some noise is being added, right? So if some noise is being added, this location it will shift, right? So it can shift to here, it can shift to here, it can shift to here, depending on what is the amount of noise, right? So since we have two carriers, right, similarly two-dimensional noise will be there, right? So that two-dimensional noise, right, so it will shift this particular point in any of the location within the plane, right? So we will see the effect of noise, right? So it is shown over here, right? So in this figure, we have plotted without noise, constellation diagram without noise, and constellation diagram with noise, but certain SNR, right? SNR, right? That is nothing but it is ratio of signal power to noise power, right? So reduced SNR, right? Reduced SNR, that means noise power is more, signal power is less. Okay, so that is how we do compare, right? So this black dot, right? So black star, that is the constellation point without noise. Okay, and pink one or magenta, right? So that is 30 dB SNR, blue one that is 20 dB SNR, and red one that is 10 dB SNR. Okay, so it is like we can see that, oh, for all of these constellation diagrams with noise, right? So we can see that as the noise is increasing, right, or SNR is reducing, right? So what will happen is the spread of the point, right? So that is increasing, right? So that is the spread or the location, right? So if we consider this, okay, let me change the color. So if we consider this particular region, right? So if we consider this particular region, okay. So in that, see, red is across the regions, right? So red is like a complete ring, right? So red is like complete ring because in that the amplitude of the noise or the magnitude or the power of the noise will be more, and because the noise power is more, right, so there will be more displacement from the original constellation point location, right? And then it is, see, for that it looks like, see, it is the constellation points, they are spread over these two rings, right? So it is completely overlapping, and we cannot separate them by a single boundary, right? So while in the case of blue, right, so the spread is less, and that is why we can have certain boundaries through which we can say that, okay, if the point is within this boundary, right, so then we will map it to the original constellation point, which is located at this particular point, right? So in the same way, if noise, right, if noise is reducing, then we can get better and better constellation diagram, and this particular process, right, so the addition of this noise, right, so it accounts for the errors being made at the receiver while deciding which symbol was received or which bit was received, right? So this is how the noise affects the performance in and when we count this particular performance in terms of bit error rate, right, so which is our usual metric, right, for deciding the performance of the wireless networks, right? So further, we have plotted the shown the constellation diagram and its effect in the effect of noise on the constellation diagram for 8 PSK modulation scheme, right? But then we have all Emery modulation schemes, right? So we have this Emery modulation schemes. Okay, in this M, right? So higher value of M, it accounts for more number of bits per symbol, right? So higher number of M accounts for more number of bits per symbol, and it saves bandwidth. Okay, and it saves bandwidth. Okay, so we want to go for higher and higher order of modulation. Okay, so higher order of modulation, that means more number of symbols within a constellation diagram. Okay, and what happens when we keep on adding more and more number of points within a constellation diagram is shown over here. Okay, so that is what, see, this particular uh, diagram, right? So that is shown on the left side. That is for 4 QAM, right? And the one on the right side, that is for 16 QAM. Okay, so let me write that also. This is for 4 QAM and this is for 16 QAM. Okay, so these two diagrams, right? So for 4, there are 4 constellation points, right? So that is this, for 4 constellation points are over here. Okay, and if we see, right, so the energy of one particular constellation point, right, it is directly proportional to the square of this distance. Okay, square of this distance, right? So that is distance of DOP, right? So O is, I'm saying that it is origin, P is the constellation point. Okay, so the energy which is required to transmit a constellation point, that is directly proportional to square of the distance between origin and the constellation point. Okay, so all these statements, right, so I'm not proving them, right? So because this is just an introductory lecture, right? So if I show them how this relation between energy and distance, right, and the relationship between the bandwidth and the number of points on the constellation diagram, right? So if I prove that, right, so it will not be possible to even reach to our topic of the session, right? So that is why I'm not proving them, right? But this, all these things, it comes from the basic theories of communication systems or digital communications and all those topics, right? Keeping this, right, that energy that is required to transmit one particular constellation point, right, that is directly proportional to distance between origin and the constellation point, right? So when we consider this particular statement about the energy, right, so we can easily see that in case of 16 QAM, right, so in case of 16 QAM, right, compared to 4 QAM, we can save the bandwidth, right? So we can save the bandwidth using by going for higher order modulation scheme. But at the same time, see, if you look at this, right, so only these 4 points, right, they are equivalent to 4 QAM in terms of energy per symbol, right? But then all the outer points, right, so all the outer points which are 12 in number, so they are consuming, or they will require more amount of energy to be transmitted. Okay, so just to balance between energies, right, so what can be done is we can shrink the constellation diagram. Okay, if we shrink the constellation diagram, that means this distance, right, so this distance will reduce, right? When by shrinking this constellation diagram, this particular distances will reduce. Okay, and the other relation with performance and the distance between nearest constellation points, right, that is the probability of error, right? So probability of error or bit error rate or symbol error rate, right? So that is, again, that is inversely proportional to this distance, right? So if this distance is smaller, the probability of making an error, right, it will be large, right? And that is the reason behind that is, see, because of some noise, right? See, because of some noise, if this location, right, so location of one particular point, it spreads this much, right? If it spreads this much, right, but within the same noise conditions, if you shrink this, right, so this distance is less, that means this particular boundary and this boundary, right, so they will touch each other. Okay, so when these boundaries they touch each other, that means we have low noise margin. When we have low noise margin, there will be probably more probability or larger probability of making an error at the receiver in making particular decision that which particular symbol had been received, right? And the same thing can be seen in terms of bit error rate curve, right? So with respect to SNR, right, so as SNR increases, bit error rate will reduce, right? So that is because when SNR increases, that means the noise power is reducing. When noise power is reducing, the amount by which the constellation point shift from its original location that will be less, right? And we will see that the constellation points corresponding to particular symbol, right, they will be located almost at the original location when noise is reduced or SNR is proper, right? So that means here, by looking at this, right, so for 4 QAM, bit error rate is lesser than the bit error rate in case of 16 QAM, right? So it is something like, see, for example, if we want to reach at the bit error rate of 10 raised to minus 5, right? So at bit error rate of 10 raised to minus zero point 0.5 or 10 raised to minus 5, so we need to have this much SNR, right? So we can see that for same bit error rate, in case of 16 QAM, the required SNR is this much, right? So let us say this is somewhere around 9 or 9.5 dB, right? So here it is somewhere around 9.5 dB, while here it is somewhere around 13 dB, right? So it is almost 4 to 5 dB of SNR difference, right? So that means for the same bit error rate, if we want same bit error rate, in that case we need to transmit more signal energy or more signal power, right? So that is if we are going for higher order modulation scheme, right? So if we go for 16 QAM, right, so bit error rate, right, it is obvious that it will be higher, right? So that means, so over here there are some 2 3 considerations, right? So one consideration is we need to have energy per bit, right? So we need to have energy per bit constant, right? So then only we can say that our representation of SNR, right? So this SNR, right, this should also be SNR per bit. Okay, so SNR per bit, if we maintain SNR per bit, then only we can say that okay, we need to have more energy per bit to be transmitted, right, to maintain same bit error rate. Okay, and that is how we say that okay, bandwidth BR trade-off is there, right? So when we go for higher order modulation scheme, we will save in terms of bandwidth, right? Because at every instance of symbol transmission, we are transmitting more number of bits. So that is how bandwidth is getting saved. But at the same time, since there are more number of constellation points, right? So if we transmit same energy per bit, in that case the constellation points, they will be shrinked, and there will be the minimum distance between two nearest constellation points that will reduce, and that would result in more or higher bit error rate. Okay, so that is how we do have a bandwidth bit error rate trade-off. Okay, so this is one thing. Okay, and then the other thing is this fading. All right. So not only wireless, right? So wireless communication, right? We do have a less amount of fading, but with wireless, we do consider mobile environment, right? So environment is mobile. So in that case, the signal, right? So it is received after certain processes in the air, right? So the process is like reflection, refraction, diffraction, right? So scattering, right? So these many processes, right, they will affect the signal, and that is why, see, we need to have a representation of received signal, right? R as hx plus n. All right, so we have to have representation like R is equal to hx plus n, where this n is noise, right? So n is noise, usually AWGN in nature, right? While this X, it is transmitted symbol, or transmitted signal. This H is signal coefficient, right? Or sorry, not signal, channel coefficient, right? So H is channel coefficient. Okay, and this R is received signal. Okay, so this channel coefficient, this accounts for fading. Okay, and this particular expression, it is valid only for flat fading and slow fading, flat and slow fading, then only we can represent like this. Okay, otherwise if it is fast fading and frequency selective fading, so in that case we cannot represent by simple representation like this. So if it is the case, if that is the case, like frequency selective fading is there, so in that case we need to represent the received signal in terms of convolution between the channel impulse response and the signal transmitted symbol, right? So that is the difference. Okay, so when fading is present, right, so we can see that the constellation diagram, even if there is no noise, right, so even if there is no noise, the black dots, right, so they are also scattered everywhere. We do not know what symbol was transmitted, and the receiver, right, so it cannot get any idea. Even we cannot identify what modulation scheme is transmitted, right? So what modulation scheme is there, that also we cannot identify from this particular constellation diagram. Okay, so for this, how to do processing at the receiver, how the receiver makes a decision about what symbol was transmitted and what is received, right? So for that, there is one process which is phase correction. Okay, so which is phase correction. Okay, and this phase correction is the correction of the phase of the channel coefficient. Okay, so this channel coefficient h, right, it is complex. It is complex in nature. Okay, so it is complex in nature because, see, if we have transmit one transmitter and one receiver. Okay, so let us see, we have one transmitter and one receiver, right? So we have a direct path and one reflected path, right? So direct path and reflected path, right, when they both get added, right, so because this has to travel distance d1, this has to travel distance d2, and not only that, there is a reflection also, right? So depending on the reflection coefficient of the material from which the signal is getting reflected, depending on that as well as the distance, right, so there will be a phase shift. So these two components, when they are added at the receiver, right, so because the receiver doesn't know what is happening in the medium between transmitter and receiver, right, so it receives, receiver, it senses whatever is available at one particular instant, right? So what happens is, one, this component, direct component as well as reflected components, when they both reaches the receiver, there will be a superposition, and superposition will be having different components, having different magnitude as well as different phases, right? So and then whatever is the complete superposition and whatever signal is received after that, right, so overall complete process, right, so that is represented in channel coefficient, right? So and that channel coefficient, that is why it is complex in nature, right? And when a complex phenomenon occurs, right, so or complex representation comes, right, it has magnitude as well as phase. Okay, so magnitude and phase, out of that, if we only do phase correction, right, just a phase correction, right, so only after doing phase correction we can get to know, okay, so what would be the how the constellation diagram would look like. Okay, and the constellation diagram, it has now certain boundaries, right? So now we can see some clear boundaries, right? And then we can also comment based on this constellation diagram, we can say that it is for this particular modulation scheme, right? So in this case it is for 8 PSK modulation scheme, right? So it is the PSK modulation, the modulation happens in terms of angles. Okay, so this origin, and we have 8 number of angles, right? So here it is 8 number of angles. Okay, so it is 8 PSK modulation scheme. Okay, so one thing is, see, with when there is fading, right, so when there is fading, phase correction is required at the receiver. Okay, so when this phase correction is done, we can have constellation diagram which gives some idea about modulation scheme, as well as it makes at the receiver, it makes convenient to make decision with sufficiently lower probabilities of errors, right? So but still there is huge degradation in performance when there is fading. Okay, so when there is fading, there is huge performance degradation, right? So for example, if we look at SNR 10 dB, right? So if we look at SNR 10 dB and 4 QAM modulation scheme, right? So SNR 10 dB, so the bit error rate, it is somewhere around 2.5 into 10 raised to minus 2, somewhere around that, right? So it is 0.025 somewhere, right? So but then uh, if we look at the same SNR, right? So same SNR, right? And same modulation scheme without fading, right? So in that case, see, the bit error rate is even below 10 raised to minus 5. So there is a huge degradation brought in by fading, right? So in the performance, that is bit error rate performance specifically, right? So not there is, see, one more process we need to do when there is fading. Not only the reception, but the reception complexity will also be increased, right? So reception complexity increases in terms of this phase correction is required. Okay, and for this phase correction we need to at least estimate a phase, right? So we need to estimate the phase of the channel, right? So through which we can do the phase correction. So one is estimation and phase correction. These two processes are extra when fading is present in the environment. Right. So even after doing these two extra processes, there is a huge degradation in BER performance. Right. So at least 10 raised to 3, order of 10 raised to 3. Right. So that is there. Okay. So that is always there. Further, now what can be done to to minimize the effect of these processes? Okay. So for that, we have diversity schemes. Okay, so diversity schemes is, we have different diversity schemes like space diversity, right? We have time diversity. Okay, we have frequency diversity. Okay, so out of this, uh, we have polarization diversity and so on, right? So we have many other diversity techniques, right? So out of that, space diversity techniques, right, they have become popular. Okay, and space diversity techniques, they have become popular because it doesn't require resources in terms of time and frequency. Okay, so resources in terms of time and frequency, it doesn't require, and that is why space diversity schemes are useful and more popular in practice. Okay, so what is space diversity is, at the receiver we install multiple antennas, right? And multiple signals are received, right? And there is a theory of antenna theory, right? So that says which says that if we sufficiently space the antennas at the receiver, right? So the distance between two antennas, right? So if it is sufficiently larger, in that case the signals received, they will be independent, right? So independent, that means they will be affected by independent channel coefficients, right? So channel coefficients, that is, if we have two links, right, and h1 and h2, they are the channel coefficients, right? So in that case, the statistically h1 and h2, they will be independent, right? So that is can be that this theory can be helpful, and using that, see, if we have single antenna, right? So single antenna, the bit error rate performance, it is this much, while if we install three antennas, right, so bit error rate, it can be improved to this much, right? So here it should be noted that not only the bit error rate is improving, right, not only the bit error rate, but the rate at which the curve or bit error rate is falling with increase in SNR, right? So that is also huge, right? So for example, 10 to 14. right? So going from SNR 10 to 14, right? So going from SNR 10 to 14, see, we have improvement in bit error rate, right? So that can be only this much when single antenna is installed, right? So while going from SNR 10 to 14, see, there is huge improvement, right? Okay, so it is only 4 5 times reduction in bit error rate, while here it is 10 to 12 times reduction in bit error rate, right? So the slope of bit error rate curve, right? So that is also increasing when we are installing more and more number of links to the receiver, right? So using space diversity, right? So these particular curves, right? So I have considered MRC diversity technique, okay, and the fading, that is Rayleigh fading, okay. So Rayleigh fading, that means this H, right? So magnitude of H, it takes Rayleigh distribution, okay, and MRC is this kind of combining at the receiver, okay. So there are certain techniques through which we can do different types of combining, and MRC is the optimal combining scheme, and that is why it has been shown over here, okay. So this is just a comparison of all the different environments that we have considered, right? So just AWGN, only AWGN, while fading and diversity schemes, okay, fine. So what is the need of MIMO, right? So we have discussed that, okay, to improve bandwidth efficiency, we need to go for higher order modulation schemes. But when we go for higher order modulation schemes, we need to pay in terms of bit error rate. And when there is fading, this bit error rate degradation, it is too much. To consider this degradation, right, or to overcome this degradation up to certain extent, we can get advantage from diversity techniques, right? But then, see, there is this diversity techniques, they can only get advantage in terms of bit error rate, right? But then what about channel capacity, right? So channel capacity, that is the rate through which signal can be transmitted, right? So which will improve the bandwidth efficiency, okay. So for that, we consider MIMO systems in which there are multiple antennas at the transmitter, multiple antennas at the receiver, right? So we will see this how the MIMO transmission happens, and what should be the technique that should be employed at the receiver, right? So I have kept one topic for discussion on this, right? So where we will be discussing about NOMA, right, which is a probable candidate for multiple access techniques in 5G. Right? So when we will be discussing that, right, so I will briefly compare this MIMO systems with transmission with the NOMA technique, right? So that is for increasing channel capacity, and the MIMO systems, they are specifically for parallel transmission of data, right? So using that, it improves capacity without extra bandwidth as well as extra power, right? So which is usual resource, right? So if you want to improve, if you want to improve performance, right? So it is you need to invest resources in terms of bandwidth or power. But MIMO systems, right, so they are capable of improving capacity without extra bandwidth as well as extra power, right? So but then we have certain receiver diversity techniques, right? So that also helps in improving the channel capacity, okay. So further, let us discuss, right? So that is so this part, right? So this ends the first part, that is what is the genesis or what is the motivation to go for MIMO technology, right? And then let us say, while going from one generation to the other in wireless technology, what are the requirements, or what are the specific specifications, right? That is that motivates us to go for next generation of wireless technologies, okay. So one thing is this minimum delay or latency for real-time applications, right? See, the earlier wireless technologies, they were limited only to making a phone call. Then we added a feature of SMS. In addition to that, the internet connectivity was added into that, right? And nowadays, see, for example, whatever we are doing, right? Some of you are using your 4G connections or 3G connections, right? So using that, you are able to listen to this talk, right? So that is also, that is one of the reason that, see, that there should be minimum delay or minimum latency, right? So whatever I'm speaking, right, at the same instant should reach to you, right? Because, see, I'm writing also something, right? So I'm making some pointing something, right? So it should be visible, right? Otherwise there will be a complete loss of synchronization between what I am speaking and what are my actions over the screen, right? So if there is a mismatch in the synchronization, or if the video comes with delay, right? So in that case, there will be uh, difficulties in understanding, right? So this is just an example, right? But there are even more important things like telemedicine, right? So where robots are making operations and doctors are just monitoring at the faraway place, right? So in that case, it is very crucial to send complete information, right? So of all the actions of the robot to the doctor, right? So that is where minimum delay or latency that is required for the real time applications. And the other term, right, so that is high spectral efficiency, high data rates, or high channel capacity, right? So this is in perspective of the first part, right? So low latency or minimum delay, that was in the perspective of the user, while the second one, right, so this is at the perspective of the service provider or the technology, right? So if we have high spectral efficiency or high data rates, right, channel capacity, so in that case we will need to have reduced bandwidth for per channel and complete frequency band which is required to make the communication happen, right? It should be limited, and by that the capital expenditure or the operational expenditure of the industries, right, so they can be reduced. Okay, so over here there can be certain scenarios like noise limited scenario, interference limited scenario, and limited bandwidth. Okay, so then we can have this high bandwidth per user through single carrier transmission or multiple carrier transmission, right? So multi carrier transmission, which was introduced in 4G, that is through OFDM. Okay, so that also we will discuss in brief. Okay, but then this single carrier transmission, it had an with large bandwidth, right? It has a drawback of having frequency selective fading. When there is frequency selective fading, we need to have equalization, right? And that equalization also is a one more process that is required at the receiver, which makes which brings in complexities to the receiver hardwares and computations, all those things, right? So these are the key requirements of wireless technology, right? So mainly, see, when there is noise limited scenario or interference limited scenario or limited bandwidth, right? So this limited bandwidth is always there, okay. But then whether interference is more or noise is more, right? So which is dominant, depending on that. Even if there is just a noise limited scenario, we can play with the power levels of the transmitter to adjust the data rates or the channel capacity and all those things. While in interference limited scenarios, we cannot increase the transmitted power. Okay, so there are certain limitations on that. Okay, so further, what are the demands from wireless technology, right? So and what are the limitations, right? So then there are performance limitation at physical layer. So physical layer, we have limited resources in terms of spectrum. Okay, so physical layer, right? So this is in terms of the network layers, right? So here, how the signal would be transmitted physically, right? So that particular aspect is taken into consideration, right? So over here, the bandwidth of the signal, how the signal would propagate, right? So those things are taken into consideration, and we already know that the spectrum or the bandwidth, right, that is scarcely available, right? So that is limitedly available, and that is the reason why we do not go for infinite bandwidth. And then again, there is a information theory limits that says that even if you go for infinite bandwidth, right, even if you go for infinite bandwidth, you do not get infinite capacity. You cannot transmit infinite information in infinite bandwidth, right? So there is a limitation. Okay. Further, electromagnetic propagation principles are also there, right? See, based on the environment, right, or environmental conditions, right? So if there is winter season is there, right? So dense fog is there. So in that case, the propagation properties of the medium will change. If it is a rainy day, right? So in that case, also the scattering will be more, and cloudy day, there will be different effects on the signals traveling from the transmitter to receiver, right? So all these things will be affecting, right? So these are the certain limitations at the physical layer. Other thing, right, so that we see, right, that is efficiency of wireless networks, right? So now what is happening? So now we are increasing the device density every time, right? So every year device density is increasing, right? See, earlier we had just one mobile phone per house. Now one mobile phone per person. In addition to that, not only mobile phones, we have cameras, that those cameras are also connected to wi-fi, right? So so many things are coming into effect, right? So other sensors, like we have iots, right? So other things, right, like smart televisions, right? So they are also transmitting some things, right, and receiving some things, right? So like that, device density, right? So device density is increasing, and likewise the access points, right? So access points are also being dense in nature, right? So earlier, the wi-fi systems, right, so they were very little connections, right? But now at every point, you can at least get some wi-fi access points, right? Even you can activate wi-fi in your wi-fi hotspot in your mobile phones, right? So that is how the access points are also getting densely deployed. Okay. Further, this large spectrum, right? So large spectrum in terms of enhanced bandwidth, like for example, we are exploring new and new bands, right? So earlier, all the communication was based on 900 megahertz spectrum or 1800 megahertz spectrum. But now we are moving towards gigahertz frequencies, right? So that is millimeter wave frequencies, right? So 60 gigahertz, 28 gigahertz, right? So all those bands are coming into picture. 28, 32, 48 gigahertz, right? So those bands are coming into picture for millimeter wave communications, right? So that means large spectrum are also being available. But then with those large spectrum, we are adding more and more challenges also, right? And then further, we are going into spectral efficiency, right? So with large spectrum, it is still not to be wasted, right? So large spectrum should still be used efficiently, as well as we have spectral efficiency, right? So that is this large spectrum and spectral efficiency, right? So they come hand to hand, right? So they are linked to each other. Okay. And further, we have MIMO technology, right, where we have certain aspects like point to point, multi user, and massive MIMO, right? So with this, let us compare about 4G and 5G specifications, right? So 4G specifications, I already told that MIMO systems up to 8 cross 8 being uh, is being supported, right? And multiple access and modulation, right? That is OFDM as well as QAM up to 64 QAM, right? And the standard is LTE and LTE advanced, right? So with that, it gives latency of less than 100 milliseconds. Okay, but then this particular latency is for ideal to active transition. Okay, so that means the mobile phone is idle, then whenever someone pings it, it becomes active, right? So that particular latency is 100 milliseconds, otherwise it is 10 milliseconds. Okay, and what is expected in 5G, right? So 5G, the peak data rate is expected to be 10 gbps, while the user experience data rate is to be 100 mbps. Okay, so further the latency is expected to reduce to 1 millisecond. Mobility, which was 300 kilometer per hour in 4G, is to be expected is to be increased to 500 kilometer per hour. Okay, and further we can see this comparison. Okay, so this particular document I have taken from the website of ITU, right? So that is International Telecommunications Unit, so which has envisioned the improvement in 5G as compared to 4G, right? So spectrum efficiency, it is becoming 3 times as compared to 4G, right? So mobility from 350 to 500, while the latency from 10 milliseconds to 1 millisecond. Okay, and network energy efficiency 100 times to improve, area traffic capacity to improve 10 times, right? And peak data rate 20 gbps, it is for the hotspot and all, right? But for user experience, it will be 100 mbps only. Okay, fine. So these are the 5G specifications, some specifications, and further we have this physical layer and MAC layer building blocks. Okay, so within this, right? So spectrum, right, up to 30 gigahertz centimeter wave, up to 100 gigahertz millimeter wave, right? So this is the spectrum envisioned, right? And it is particularly divided into this 6 gigahertz or or lesser, right? So that is considered as sub 6 gigahertz band. Okay, while 28 and 86 gigahertz bands, right, they are also envisioned to be standardized, right? So the spectrum and waveform, right, it is to be implemented at the physical layer, even the MIMO and duplex mode, right, as well as modulation, right? So these are almost at the file layer, right? That is physical layer. Okay, and further multiple access, frame structure, coding, right? So frame structure and coding, it usually comes at MAC layer, right? Even there are certain codes which can be implemented at the physical layer, right? So that is LDPC, turbo, polar, right? So that is error correction codes. Okay, but then where the CRC is to be checked, right? So that keeps this particular coding at one particular layer. Okay, but then over here we have to focus on this multiple access techniques. Okay, so we will be going into this now. Okay, so that is FDMA, single carrier FDMA, or NOMA, SCMA, RSMA, right? So we will discuss some of these techniques, right? And we will go into detail of some. We will just introduce some of them, right? So let us go into multiple access technologies for 5G and beyond, right? So here we will be discussing various multiple access technologies, right? But before that, uh, from before multiple access, right? So one more feature is there which is required, that is duplexing. Okay, so duplexing also has certain techniques. Okay, and that is required because all our communications, right? So we need duplex communications, right? So nowhere we need simplex or half duplex communications, right? So although duplexing is many a times done using a fashion similar to half duplex systems, right? But then the user doesn't know whether it is implemented using half duplex method or a full duplex method. But user experience is that, yeah, I am doing a duplex communication, right? So for that, what are the methods of duplexing, right? So one is frequency division duplexing. Okay, so frequency division duplexing, we do have two bands of frequency for every user. One is reverse channel and one is forward channel. Okay, so forward channel, the user sends its own information, while at reverse channel, it receives the information. Okay, so frequency division duplexing is a duplexing in true sense, right? It is a duplexing in true sense because there are two dedicated channels for forward transmission as well as reverse transmission. Okay, while the other technique, which is time division duplexing. Okay, in time division duplexing, we have time slots, right, divided per user, right? So within a channel, there are two time slots. One will be used for transmission, other time will be used for reception, right? So this kind of technique, it is a kind of half duplex because whenever forward transmission is going on, right, reverse transmission cannot happen, right? So whenever transmission is going on, at the same time reception cannot happen. Reception is given a one particular time slot, right? So it is something like whenever transmission is going on at this device, at the transmitter, right? So receiver, it will not be transmitting because that particular time slot, right? So it is like, so device 1 and device 2, they are communicating, right? So device 1 is transmitting, right? So device 1 is allotted slot for transmitting, the same slot device 2 would be receiving. When device 2 is transmitting, right, device 1 would be receiving, right? So that means one particular device cannot do transmission and reception simultaneously in TDD, right? So that is why I'm saying that this is not a true duplexing scheme, right? But see, the user would not experience that the duplexing is not happening in true sense, right? So further, this TDD and FTD for massive MIMO or MIMO in altogether, right? So that is, see, terminals will learn downlink channel from pilots sent by the base station. Okay, so the channel, right? So channel, it is learned at the terminals, right? So that means at the users. Okay, and the pilot transmission is done at the base station, right? While in TDD, opposite happens. Okay, see, pilots, they are sent through the uplink channel by users, and base station learns the channel. Okay, so most of the learning, right? So terminals over here have to do channel estimation, right? So while in TDD terminals, they don't do channel estimation, they don't require channels either. Okay, while in this case the reciprocal channels are there, right? So downlink estimation is not required, right? And the other thing is, when there are massive MIMO or MIMO kind of transmissions, right? So there can be beamforming also, right? And through beamforming, right, base station, once they have channel state information about all the users, right, it can serve through beamforming also, right? So in TDD, right, the users, they do not need to have channel state information, and that is why no need of downlink estimation, right? While that is done in FDD at the users, right? So that is the thing. Okay, so now let us see what are multiple access techniques, right? So multiple access techniques, commonly known, right? So these are commonly known: frequency division multiple access, time division multiple access, code division multiple access, space division multiple access, right? And all these techniques have already been in use since second generation of cellular communication. Okay, so further, through these modulation schemes, the channels can be, or the systems can be classified as narrowband systems or wideband systems. Okay, so depending on whether the channel being allocated, right, it is of wideband nature or the narrowband nature, right? So or the fading, right, whichever comes experienced by most of the users, whether it is of flat nature or flat fading or frequency selective fading. So based on that we can have wideband and narrowband systems. Okay, so if we see the narrowband systems, right? So narrowband systems, they are usually for FDMA as well as TDMA. Okay, so time division multiple access and frequency division multiple access. Okay, so usually, right, so narrowband channels, right, so they usually do FDD. Okay, but then yeah, TDD is also allowed. Okay, so depending on what is the data rate and how we can do duplexing, right? So depending on that we can have combination of duplexing, right? So like FDMA FDD, FDMA TDD, TDMA FDD, and TDMA TDD, right? So this kind of uh, uh, mechanisms can be implemented. Okay, so FDMA FDD is like the frequency axis is divided among the users. Okay, frequency axis is divided among the users. Again, within that, each user is assigned two channels. One is forward channel, other is reverse channel. Right. So this is the same description of FDMA, FDD, FDMA, FDD topic, which we have shown. Right. So now it is shown pictorially. Right. So we already explained. Now it is pictorial representation. Okay. And further we have CDMA, TDD. Okay. So further we have CDMA, TDD. So in that we have codes, right? So codes are uh, divided among the users. Okay, so codes are divided among the users, right? And all the frequency is being used by the users, right? So frequency is not divided, only codes are assigned, right? While there will be one forward channel and reverse channel, but that is in time, right? So time is divided for forward channel as well as reverse channel, right? So that is why it is TDD, while frequency or time is not divided among the users, right? And that is through CDMA, right? So CDMA, there are different techniques like spread spectrum technique, right? So in that we have direct sequence spread spectrum or frequency hopping spread spectrum, right? So that is again CDMA rather than a modulation scheme. It is more of a multiple access scheme. Okay, fine. So further we have different cellular systems which uses different techniques, right? So over here we had GSM, which used to be using TDMA FDD technique, right? Okay, so then frequency division multiple access, certain aspects of that. Okay, so it is one phone circuit per channel, right? Because one particular channel, right, cannot be shared with other user. Okay, so in this, sometimes, see, if some phone call is going on, right? So sometimes one user, he speaks very rarely, right? So for example, some description of some topic is going on, right? So in that case listeners, right, they are paying attention, they are not speaking much, right? So in that case only a one way connection is required more often, right? So within that we can give some intelligence to the system that in which way traffic is going more, so in that direction it can give more resources, right? So that the wastage of resources doesn't happen. Okay, so but then frequency division multiple access scheme, right? So it has simultaneous and continuous transmission. So it requires more battery also, right? It consumes more energy also, right? Because it is continuously transmitting also, right? So that is there, and it is usually implemented in narrowband systems, right? So because the same channel cannot be used for transmission as well as reception by certain time division within that. Okay, so further FDMA when we compare to TDMA, right? So TDMA, so many synchronizations are required, right? So because one particular time slot, right? So in time slot, for example, this is given to user 1, this time slot is given to user 2, this time slot is given to user 3, right? So within that there is certain guard bits, right? So guard time interval is also required, right? So within this, if they are not, if the users they are not transmitting in synchronization, right? So in that case, this user, they have to know when its time slot is starting, right? So for that, synchronization bits are required, right? So some sync mechanism is required, right? So that is what in FDMA synchronization is not required, almost not required, right? And fewer bits for framing, right? So here framing is also like this is start of frame, this is stop of frame, right? So those things are to be implemented, right? Fine. So then space division multiple access, right? So space division multiple access is the feature of cellular communications, right? So it is like something like this, right? So in the space we do divide, right? And it is something like sectorized antennas, right? So we divide a cell into sectors, and different sectors, they, so all these three beams, right? So three beams, they can be considered as three sectors, and within each sector, the same frequency or the same channel can be used, right? So depending on this, right, we can have, depending on the technology, right, whether a narrow beam is generated or wide beam is generated. Based on that, we can have multiple number of beams, right? So this is one thing, sectoring. But let us not consider sectoring. The cellular communication itself is space division multiple access, right? So, for example, the cellular structure is shown over here with hexagonal cells and considered cluster size of 4. Okay, so 4 with B0, B1, B2, and B3 to be the base station notations, right? So here this is B1, right? The same frequencies would be used over this B1 also, right? So B1 beat B0, right? So B0, B0, all B0s, they are using same set of frequencies, right? So this is also something like space division multiple access, right? But this is a systematic technology wherein we have we have installed this access point as well as the access point, and they are assigned certain frequency channels, right? So based on this, right, so cellular communication can also be represented as a case of space division multiple access technique. And the advanced space division multiple access schemes, right, can be considered as 3D beamforming, right? And this 3D beamforming, right, so through this also multiple access of the resources to the multiple users can be given in 5G, right? So it is like, see, there is a huge building and a base station, it is providing service through different beams at different heights. Okay, it can be considered like different floors of a building, they are given service, they are served by different access point, different beams. Okay, while this is for height, while there is azimuth beamforming also, that at different angles the users can be served at different beams, right? So that is also possible. Okay, so this is the summary of all the multiple access schemes, of which this we we have already seen this, we will be seeing these schemes. Okay, so let us see OFDM. Okay, so in OFDM, so this is just I will introduce, right, what are the problems in OFDM, right? So OFDM, so it is like single carrier transmission, right? So we need to have spectrum, we need to have use of spectrum such that the subcarrier should be packed densely. Even after this dense packing of subcarriers, there should not be interference. Okay, so that is how this particular subcarrier representation, right? It is densely packed in various subcarriers. Like, see, this is one carrier frequency, this is one carrier frequency, right? So these are four carrier frequencies, of which the spectrum of each of them, they are overlapping, and that overlap is such that at this particular location all others, all the spectrums, right, they are zero, right? So this dense packing is made such that this spectrum overflow is there, and that is why the guard bands are required. Okay, and then entire band should use the same subcarrier spacing. Okay, which may not be required for certain applications, right? So that is because certain applications, they need less bandwidth or the less data rate. They need, for example, narrowband IoT applications, right? So they need to transmit maybe a group of bits at particular instant, right? For example, the frequency at every 5 seconds, one temperature sense at every 5 minutes, temperature has to be sensed and to be transmitted, right? So in that case, very less data rate is required. So in that case, this particular spacing can be reduced, right? So that same subcarrier spacing problem should not occur, right? And then all users have to synchronize, right? So in uplink, users have to synchronize. That means if they transmit at the same time, that is fine, but then they are at different distances from the base station, and that is why that synchronization of transmission at the same time doesn't help much. Okay, so these are certain issues, and this NOMA can help in improving these issues at certain extent. Okay, and then not then see all other techniques, right? So which we have discussed till now, they are orthogonal multiple access techniques. Okay, so be it FDMA, be it TDMA, be it CDMA, be it SDMA or OFDMA, right? So all these techniques, these are orthogonal multiple access techniques, right? So now through NOMA, we are introducing non-orthogonal multiple access. Okay, so non-orthogonal multiple access. This is what we are introducing. Okay, so in this we have certain schemes like power division NOMA or cognitive radio NOMA. We have cooperative NOMA, right? So let us see what NOMA is, right? So it is in power domain NOMA, we have access to multiple users through power allocation. Okay, so this the feature, right? So the main attraction is same time slot, same frequency, same spreading code, but multiple users can be served, right? So all the users, or not all the users, but all the resources can be shared simultaneously among multiple users, right? So that is the philosophy behind principle of non-orthogonal multiple access. Okay, so we will see how it is done. Okay, so the thing is, see, users, they are distinguished by power levels. Okay, so different users are allotted different powers. Okay, so how this power is allocated, right? So it is based on channel condition. Okay, if some user is having poor channel condition, it will be assigned higher power. Okay, so when that particular user is assigned higher power, so it will consider all other signals to be interference, right? It considers all other signals to be interference, right? And that is the case shown in the figure as the user 2, right? So user 2 decode its signal, consider user 1 signal as noise. Okay, so that means this user 2 is assigned higher power. Okay, so when there are two users, right? So two users, two power levels, right? So base station, it transmits square root of P1 x1 plus square root of P2 x2. Right. So where P1 is power assigned to user 1, P2 is power assigned to user 2. Right. So in this case, since the power assignment is like this, okay, that user 2 is getting more power, so we can say that this particular channel is poor. Right. So poor means this the channel coefficient, right? So this h, right? So that is less. Anything? Okay. So further, this particular principle, right? So it can also be used with beamforming as well as MIMO, right? So that is always there. Okay. So power domain NOMA. Let us consider two users, right? So more power is assigned to the user with poor channel. Okay, so user 1, it is with poor channel, it gets more power. Okay, so then how does it do detection, right? So detection is usual, as usual in this case. Okay, because it considers the other users signal as noise. Okay, and that is fine also, right? Because its channel is poor, right? So whatever signal, its own signal is attenuated highly, then the one which is assigned lower power, that would be attenuated even higher, right? So there is no point in considering the other user signal as signal, right? So it uses it as noise. Okay, fine. So then the better channel is there, right? So that particular user, it will be assigned lower power, so then it performs SIC, that is successive interference cancellation. Okay, this uses successive interference cancellation. Okay, it uses successive interference cancellation. Okay, so what does it do is it decodes the first user's message, and then it subtracts the first user's message from the received signal, and it detects its own message, right? So that is power domain NOMA, right? Then power domain NOMA has other application also, right? That is based on the quality of service demand. Okay, so quality of service demand, how it can be, right? So that is, for example, user 1 is an IoT device, it is demanding very low data rate, while the other user, right, it is some device which demanding a high data rate. Okay, let us say it is let us say we want to do this NOMA application using OFDMA, right? So in that case, if we do OFDMA, right, so then IoT device, it uses subcarriers inefficiently because it needs very low data rate, while user 2, right, it may not get sufficient bandwidth. Okay, while if we do NOMA, right, so in that case they can share the spectrum, we can allot low data rate user less power, right? And then in this way we can maintain the quality of service to both the users, right? So then there is a question, right? So how should be this power allocation, right? So then we need to have some optimal scheme for power allocation or the resource allocation, so that NOMA outperforms the OMA, right? So that is non-orthogonal scheme should outperform orthogonal multiple access scheme, right? So that is why for that optimal resource allocation is a must. Okay. So now let us see MIMO and NOMA equivalence, right? So how I said that we will discuss this afterwards, right? So MIMO, how this transmission reception occurs, right? So let us say this is transmitter antenna 1, this is transmitter antenna 2, this is receiver antenna 1, receiver antenna 2. Okay, so it transmits, right? So here we have different channels, right? So whatever is transmitted, it will be received by both. Whatever is transmitted from this antenna, that will also be received by both. Okay, so then let us say this is H11, this is H12, this is H21, and this is H22. Okay, so the channel matrix, it becomes H11, H12, H21, H22. Okay, and let us say X1, X2 is transmitted, right? So X1, X2 is transmitted. So what will be what will be received by this Rx1, right? So Rx1, what it will receive, right? That is H11 X1 plus H12 X2 and plus some noise. Okay, so that is there. Okay, so what is being received, right? It is in the same fashion as being transmitted by NOMA, right? So that NOMA transmitter, it transmits square root of P1 X1 plus square root of P2 X2, right? So instead of this root P1 root P2, if you have constant transmission, constant power, right? So this is H11 H12, right? So if we are not deciding what is the power that is being transmitted, but this channel is deciding for which user, right? So then this is the equivalence, right? So every user receives information somewhere in this fashion, right? Only thing is, in addition to this, there will be channel coefficient that will be introduced over here. Okay, so this is how there is equivalence between MIMO transmissions, right? So this particular scheme is of transmission that is known as spectrum that mm, spectral multiplexing, right? So multiplexing, spatial multiplexing, right? So through multiplexing, right? So in space we are multiplexing, right? So this is spatial multiplexing MIMO transmission and NOMA transmission. They are equivalent schemes of transmissions. Okay, so further there are schemes like cognitive radio, right? So in cognitive radio NOMA, what we can do is, uh, see, if base station is serving to users, right? So poor channel for primary user, then we allocate high power to the primary user. If there is some power left over, that can be allocated to the secondary user, right? So there is an equivalence between this cognitive radio NOMA and this thing, underlay cognitive radio networks, right? So in underlay also there are certain power limitations set by the network, right? So above which secondary users cannot transmit, right? So in the same way, if power is left over, they can be allocated to the secondary users, right? So this rate comparison versus of non-orthogonal and orthogonal, right? So that it is obvious that, see, both there are multiple users, right? So those multiple users, they will be getting larger bandwidth. Okay, so although there are power restrictions, right? Although there are power restrictions, we are not going into all the mathematical details, but since each user is getting larger bandwidth, right? So each channel of larger bandwidth as compared to orthogonal multiple access, right? So we can conclude that, right, say sum rate of all the users, that would be better than that in orthogonal multiple access. Okay, so this is there. Okay, and then there is multi-carrier NOMA is also there, right? So this is also called hybrid NOMA, right? So in this case, those different carriers, right? So different carriers, they can be applied to different users, right? So that is, network users, they are different, divided into different groups, right? And each group is assigned a subcarrier, right? And then within that subcarrier or within that channel, orthogonal multiple access can be provided, right? So again, there is the this reduces the system complexity, right? Because within a given subcarrier there will be limited number of users, and for that the decoding SIC, right, complexity, it will be reduced, right? So uh, this is multi-carrier NOMA, right? So it uses different channels for different groups, right? So that is a way of orthogonal division, but in every group we will implement non-orthogonal multiple access, right? So that is how we are implementing this technique of non-orthogonal multiple access taking help of orthogonal technique. That is why it is called as hybrid NOMA, right? Okay. So further, it is there are different variants of multi-carrier NOMA, right? And they are this PDMA, SCMA, LDS, right? So we will see, right? So this is LDS is low density spreading, right? So low density spreading, right? It is nothing but uh, in that, right, we use spreading code, right? So spreading code, it will be having lower number of ones for every user than the number of zeros, right? So like that. Okay, number of users, number of subcarriers that are assigned to a user, right? So they are less. Okay, so this we will be showing it over here in detail. Okay, so that is what, see, it is similar to CDMA, right? So in this CDMA we have direct sequence or multi-carrier, right? And then we have this LDS, right? So low density spreading, in which the number of zeros are more, okay, in the spreading sequence, right? So spreading sequence, number of zeros are more, right? So also known as sparse, right? So that is whose elements, most of the elements are zeros, right? So that is the spreading vector is a sparse vector. Okay, so in direct spectrum, in a direct sequence CDMA, right? So particular scheme is fixed, right? So wherein we have almost equal number of ones and zeros, right? So almost equal number of ones and zeros to make the sequences orthogonal, right? While in low density spreading, see the if you see the sequences, right? So the sequences are not orthogonal in nature, right? See, if there are imbalance in number of ones and zeros in the spreading sequences, right? So then the spreading sequences, they will no longer be orthogonal. Okay, you can check taking a long sequence of ones and zeros in which the number of ones and zeros, they are not balanced, right? So if you check the sequences for orthogonality, they will not be orthogonal. Okay, but then here in this, the number of ones is sparse. Okay, so through which we can give access to multiple users. Okay, right. So then there is interleave division multiple access. Okay, so IDMA, wherein it is also very much similar to this DSCDMA. The only thing is spreading and interleaving, right? These operations are interchanged. Okay, so that is, first the data is interleaved and then the data is spreaded. Okay, so further, using MIMO also, we can implement NOMA. Okay, so over here, what happens is through beamforming, right? So through beamforming, if we see that two beams are in the figure, right? So we have shown that two beams are generated. Okay, and both these beams, right? So both these beams are serving two users in each. Okay, so if we had not formed beams like this, in that case we would have one four users in one particular frequency channel. Okay, so if that happens, right, so in that case the user which is getting lowest power will have to successively cancel the interference of all three, right? So while in this case through beamforming, the user 1, let us say user 1 is getting less power, so in that case it has to only get rid of interference from user 3, right? So that is the case. So if we divide, so this is also a kind of hybrid NOMA, right? So that is, we have divided users in beams, right? So this beam and this beam, right? So that is a kind of orthogonal space division multiple access, but within the beam we are using non-orthogonal multiple access, right? So this is also a kind of hybrid NOMA, right? So again, the same things are discussed over here, right? So if we have special multiplexing, multiple users signals are transmitted on the same channel at equal power, right? Those the same thing which I shown while showing the equivalence between MIMO and NOMA, right? So that is the thing. While in cooperative NOMA, right? So cooperative NOMA, it is like uh, considering NOMA user as a relay for other NOMA users, right? So it is like the stronger user, it decode weak user signal and apply SIC, right? So the same manner as the NOMA signals are received, right? So in downlink, what will happen, right? So let us see. In phase one, base station will broadcast a NOMA signal, right? Base station will broadcast a NOMA signal. In phase two, the strong user, it will it will forward the signal to the weak user. Okay, so this is for short range communication only, right? So further, if it is orthogonal multiple access, three time slots are required. So one is message sent to relay, one for broadcast of message to the destination, and the other one is relay forwarding the message to the destination, right? So using this kind of technique, right, one time slot is saved. Okay, so that means if we save one time slot, right, so that is saving of spectral efficiency, right? So it is improving the spectral efficiency, right? So let us see one case study. Let us see, right? So it is two users at the cell edge without direct link from base station. So base station, now they are non-line of sight to the base station, right? So then in slot 1, base station, it broadcast both the user signal to a relay, then relay forward the signal to users on the same time frequency resource using NOMA. Right, so it is done within two time slots, right? But if it would have been orthogonal multiple access, we would require four time slots, right? So there is a saving in spectral efficiency using NOMA, right? So it improves throughput. Okay, so same way user cooperation, right? So user cooperation is also can be done in similar fashion. Okay, that user itself acts as a relay, right? So if some user is not no is not using resources, right, so it can forward other users messages, right? So that is what relaying used by users themselves, right? So no dedicated relays are required. Okay, so further, this is millimeter wave NOMA is just a spectrum, right? So this is just a spectrum, that is millimeter wave spectrum is being used, right? So the only thing is some propagation principles will be different, but otherwise the principle of NOMA, right, so that will remain the same. Okay, so then the implementation challenges. Okay, so I think the time is over, but I will take some 2 to 3 extra minutes, and I will discuss about implementation challenges and the generalized NOMA concepts, right? So because NOMA is just a multiple access technique, right? Not limited to 5G or one particular generation, right? So that is channel coding and modulation schemes, right? So it is suitable to achieve some rates promised by the theory, right? But then the schemes, right? So we need to design schemes that doesn't rely on successive interference cancellation, because this successive interference cancellation is computationally demanding process, right? So for that we need to look at the schemes which do not need SIC, right? Rather, we need to have some simplified detection rules or detection algorithms, right? So then there is imperfect CSI, right? So what happens if the channel state information is not available at the perfectly, right? So in that case, we will have user ordering ambiguities, right? So that means if there are two users, the channel coefficients are H1 and H2, they are not perfectly estimated, right? So then how do we order them? Which one should be assigned more power? Which one should be assigned less power? Right? So that is one thing. If CSI is not there, or if we have partial CSI is there, limited channel feedback is there, right? So all these are the cases of imperfect CSI. Okay, outdated channel is there, right? Then we have cross layer resource allocation, right? So cross layer, that means we have different layers, maybe physical layer and MAC layer. So those resources, right? So it is like joint power and sub channel allocation kind of problems, right? And maybe based on queuing theory, we can have joint rate and power control kind of applications, right? So these are some challenges. And further, security for NOMA, and simultaneous wireless information and power transmission, right? So these are also the challenges, like if we are dealing with passive networks, right? So if we are dealing with passive networks, right, so then stronger user can harvest the energy and act as a relay, right? So stronger user, right, it has less power, right? So instead of doing instead of doing while successive interference cancellation, right, so some users can be getting stronger signals, right? So those stronger signals can be used for energy harvest, right? And then it can lead to longer battery life, right? So these are just such certain problems which can be taken up by any researchers, right? So then security for NOMA, right, so that is primarily it is risk from successive interference cancellation, right? So then if we have an eavesdropper which is acting like a user, right, and then that is assigned less power, right? So then it will get all other users powers, right? So it will get all other users powers. So that is what external, that is at physical layer, some security needs to be implemented, right? And further, low complexity detection, I already said that this complexity, it comes from successive interference cancellation, right? So that needs to be looked into. Okay, and then NOMA cognitive radio, I said that it is quite similar to underlay cognitive radio. So all secondary users, right, so they are with low power or energy transmission, right? So an equivalence is already shown, right? And further, beyond 5G, right, see, it can be implemented to any technologies like visible light communication, TV or radio broadcast, okay, and satellite networks or vehicular networks and other random access networks, right? Fine. So that's all. These are some references, okay, and thank you for your attentions.